come into this space with me, I want to make sure that you're going to be well served by this presentation. So regardless of whether you know your human design or not, some of us are really much more focused on audio, other people way more visual. If my visuals distract you, I invite you to close your eyes. Okay, if it's too much movement, too many colors, that kind of thing, you can always come back to the recording and stop the recording and take notes and look at what I'm talking about. If you're more of a vocal, auditory person. If you're more visual stimulation, got plenty of visuals for you, and you will get a handout at the end of the presentation. So don't worry that you're going to miss something. Everything will be here for you to process. Know nothing about it. Oh my gosh, we've got everybody all under the sun. Okay, so I'm going to ask and request for those of you who do know a little bit about human design, if you are in professional training or are a professional, if you see any questions that float by in the chat where somebody's a little confused, please feel free to reach out, and I trust that you will follow your decision-making strategy and be in alignment with being able to support this class. Very new. Okay, so I represent, since 2012, I started human design, but in 2014, I was hired by Jovian Archive, which is the source of the human design system. The man who put it out into the world, his family hired me. So when we go into this material, I do want you to know, for astrologers, I'm going to assume that most of you at least know some of the astrological terms. And you'll notice that, and this is my challenge to you, you'll notice that there's a lot of stuff you already know. So you think that you don't know human design, but I imagine by the end of this class, you're going to go, wow, I know a lot about human design because you're an astrologer or you're studying astrology. I don't consider myself an astrologer. I consider myself to be studying astrology because astrological sciences are so vast and huge. I can't imagine any one person being able to master all of it. I'm still working on mastering the human design system. So it is a vast body of knowledge. Some of the terms you're going to find very familiar. Others might be totally new. Just remember, what Levine is attempting to do is bridge the gap between what I imagine you already know and showing you where you can ground yourself into this another vast body of knowledge to be able to source into experimenting with anything that you can pick up that really resonates with you, or you really visually get stimulated by, oh, that looks really interesting. Or maybe potentially there's something in the quality of my voice that leads you to want to engage with the material more. When you feel that rise of energy or that leaning into the screen, or maybe you want to go back and listen again and scribble down some notes, that's your sign, okay? Any engagement that you have with the material, you're like, wow, I would literally like to go and study that. Where can I get that information? That's one of the things that I'm really good at, is helping guide you in the system. So let's go ahead and get started. We're looking at the human design system, which its full term is called the Science of Differentiation. So Lavina is somebody who loves reinventing herself, and I've made a lot of different reiterations of how I present materials to you in order to get the message across. Currently, I'm going with Iconic Human Design, LLC. And it's because if you look at this body graph, you may not have seen this before if you're not familiar with human design. It might be totally new, but those of you who it's not that new, you might not have seen the multidimensional 3D-ish kind of capabilities that we have now with the body graph, and to be able to understand the energetic flows within your chakras, your energetic vortices that are within your body. That's one of the benefits of human design, because it helps us understand, and here you can see some of my qualifications over at the International Human Design School. It helps us come to grips with what it is like to be alive in this form, in this body, this vehicle that is part of the nature of being in this world, in this reality. So what you're looking at now is, this is the Rave mandala wheel. Everybody familiar with your 12 astrological signs, yeah, and the houses. We don't use a house system here because we don't use the rising sign per se. We have a lot of other calculations that we're going to get into, but what you can see is that astrological wheel. And so right there, you already know a little bit about human design, but I'll show you more. Don't worry, we're going to go and explore more. But to orient you, I'm going to go through a bunch of slides and just show you around. So being a little tour guide, if you will, so that you can see the synthesis of what is the human design system. It incorporates the Chinese I Ching. The Western zodiac is what we use for our personal calculations. The Hindu Brahmin chakra system and the Judaic Kabbalah are also here. So chakras or vortices or portals of energy where we have those hexagrams opening up the portal gates, opening up those portals of energetic flow or awareness or some kind of response. So you'll see as we move through this presentation, if you've got your body graph with you, you can look at that and see whether or not you've got activations, so planetary life aspects, the planets, activating specific areas of your body graph, and then you're going to learn something about yourself just by today's presentation. Now, one of the really cool things about this system is it's not only the ancient observational sciences that I just mentioned, but it's also the modern day processes of understanding our human genetics, our biology, our psychology. And so it's a little bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but just to know that that genetic code, if you will, inside of you, where the planetary life aspects have imprinted you, show us your preferences or predispositions to how you're here to be unique, uniquely you and uniquely different. So when it comes to that body graph, this is really the magic of the whole system, is to be able to see a visual representation in a body, see the little shape of the body right there, with all of those different functions, and our form follows function. So when we add on the information you already know signs, don't you? I imagine you know where your sun is, you know where your moon is, but did you know that you have an earth imprint too? That's one of the differences about the human design system, is that immediately across the wheel from where your sun is, so you can go look at this in your own software now, you don't even have to get new software, just look directly across the mandala wheel, polar opposite, and see where the core essence of your personality consciousness is grounded in your form, or this earth, this body of knowledge gives us an additional imprint. So not only that, but it's going to give us some archetypal themes or flavors that you're going to lay onto what you already know. So it's very helpful if you come to this place of, wow, I think I already know a little bit of this, because what is Gemini about? Do you know? What is Gemini about, my friends? Tell me what Gemini is about. Excellent communication. So if we take a look at what we're looking at in this body graph, this mandala wheel, do you see how a significant portion of these gates up here, activations up here, are in the throat center? Okay, there you have it. You know a little bit about human design, speaking these voices that actually carry sound frequency formula that have meaning and transmit information. The one right here, 15, that has a little tiny portion of it there in Gemini, it's a gate of extremes. So these vacillations between extremes. And so you were saying siblings, right? A binary, as we can see. So see how you already know a little bit about human design when it comes to understanding this magical mandala. And when we look at this magical mandala, you're now looking at these archetypal themes that we can link up into that mandala wheel. Now, it's not that you're going to go around and pray to Kali, that's where I was born, but it's showing a genetic theme that is part of your life purpose fulfillment. And that might be quite surprising too. So all you have to do is go look at your personality and see where in the mandala wheel your personality awareness imprint was when you were born, and you can find your Godhead. That's a little bit beyond the scope. We won't get into that, but just orienting you to the architecture of life. And that's what we have here with Ra Uru Hu and his human design system. We have the design of forms. We have not only the design of humans, as you can see in the middle here, we have inanimate objects, we have single-celled organisms, we have birds, reptiles, and fish, we have the insects, we have mammals, we have also trans-auric entities, which is quite creepy and weird and interesting and wonderful, because we can look at a group, small group, or several large groups, put them together and see whole new ways of interacting or interfacing with each other. So in the science of differentiation, if we go back to a human design chart, because that's way more practical for us to explore right now, we have 26 activations because there are 13 conscious and 13 unconscious planetary life imprints. Those imprints are brought into one of the 9 centers where we have 36 channels. Channels are simply the areas where a portal in space can connect up with another portal in space and be brought into a body graph where we can see these thematics within our own bodies. We can test it, we can validate it, we can experiment with it, try and see how well it works for us. Those 64 gates and hexagrams, they don't float around, they're always fixed, but it is the planets that are the wandering stars, as the ancients used to call them, the planets that are going to give you a specific genetic imprinting based upon what that planet flavor is. And also underneath that portal in space, each portal, each gate, the hexagrams, are subdivided into 6 different sections. We call them lines, hexagram lines. So if you've ever studied the I Ching, you already know a lot of human design. Isn't that funny? So these basic planetary keynotes, I imagine as you look at this, there's probably no surprise there, right? They look pretty familiar. Do you recognize anything very different? Because yes, we do have more words that we can use in human design. Obviously, there's a whole lot of information that we can use, but just the basic information. We have our psychology and our physiology when we apply this information into our human design body graph. So these hexagrams, now I know I went over and didn't read all of that. Lavina's not a fan of reading stuff off the screen. My apologies if that's bothering you. Close the eyes. Don't look at the words. Just look at the image, maybe. Maybe the image is a nice place to look. Because now we're highlighting those 64 hexagrams in the mandala, or in other words, gates, like portals in space, where if a planet was there, all hail Zeus. If a planet, Jupiter, is there, currently it's in the communication function, our throat center, and it's holding the door open for us to be able to communicate and contribute to each other in a way that holds all of us together towards a group goal. That's where Lavina's strongest unconscious imprinting is on the body side. That's where I get my worth realized in individuating into somebody who can teach this knowledge. So when you look at a hexagram or a gate, every single gate has, again, 6 lines, so 6 different subdivisions of that gate. And every gate's lines, because of the principle of genetic continuity, which says that all lines resonate with each other. I'm going to say it a different way. In the gates, in that portal in space, if we subdivide each of the 64 gates into 6 different sections, 1 will resonate with 1, and 2 will resonate with 2, and 3 with 3, and 4 with 4, and 5 with 5, 6 with 6. So there's this resonance principle that we have that once you learn that word, you will start to see it play out, particularly if it's in your life's work, the role, the costume that you wear, the personality construct as it lives in this body, this vehicle, enjoys being embodied in form. So now underneath the surface of the lines, we are going to have even more further nuance. If you're interested, the original presentation I had for you was going through all the lines. I'm like, I'm going to show them really, wow, their socks off. And then I realized that was too deep. So we're going to go a little bit more surface level, but there is some more information I can give you if you're interested in the hexagram structure, because it's the foundational basis for human design. And you can see that we have yang and yin. If you don't know what yang and yin is, think the sun, and then, oh, the moon, or the earth. Very different than that sun, isn't it? Life, the way that we are imprinted, is a binary. That entire mandala wheel, polar opposites. If you go around and look at those activations, those hexagrams, you will see that they are arranged in a circular fashion with the exact polar opposite, or the mirror in the mandala, right across the way. Now, underneath the surface of each of those hexagram lines, we have something very interesting. Even further, the differentiation of our form to take in life uniquely, or of our mind and its awareness to give of our frequency to another cleanly. We have something underneath the surface of our awareness, and that underneath aspect of us is there because of something called the neutrino stream. So a neutrino is a tiny, tiny particle that actually Ra declared has mass because of this information that he downloaded, that he brought out to the world. And what you're looking at is that there's a stream of energy that enters into our crystals of consciousness. We have a crystal that is conscious personality, the witness, the eternal soul, the you that was you before time was time, when we were all one thing. And then we also have the design imprint, which is part of the form, which is coming from this earth. So we have these two crystals of consciousness. In fact, everything has crystals of consciousness, but those are our primary crystals of consciousness that we work with in analytical fashion. And the neutrino stream, when you were born, it entered into the base of the crystal, and then the inner architecture of the crystal, and then it exits. And because we have an entry, inner, and exit frequency, what happens is we have a very, very specific, nuanced activation of a gate. So you can see not just those 64 gates, not just one of 6 lines, but also you have a color and tone and base. So there is an eternal nature of you that you can look at in your body graph, which is quite interesting. So there again is the personality crystal, this spirit of consciousness that arises from within you as a witness to this body, this vehicle, the design crystal, which is living the life experience that you are all wandering through, or excitedly running through, or skipping and dancing, or maybe you're sleeping it through. I don't know. It's up to you as far as how you're going to live your life. So there's one more thing we need to talk about, and that's magnetic monopole. It's going to get really important when we go over to Taurus, where the sun is, right? So we're going to look at the magnetic monopole, which is part of the design crystal that came from the center of the earth. And when it separated inside of your mother's womb, that is what built the body. So this body got an imprint 88 degrees of the sun's movement before your birth. And that is where you have the energetic imprinting of this physical form. So that's another difference between astrology, as it's usually done, and human design. We're looking at 2 calculations that are brought into the body graph: your unconscious genetic inheritance and your personality consciousness, so the witness of who you think you are. So the personality consciousness is the black calculation on that right-hand side. This is the moment of birth. And then we have the unconscious, 88 degrees of the sun's movement, or approximately 88, 89 days. This is before your birth. This is the nature of your unconscious, not subconscious. This is your unconscious, your biogenetic inheritance from the genetic lineage to which this body belongs. Okay, so when we bring the 2 together, they're not separate things, they're one thing. But when we bring the 2 together, we're going to see relationships between your mind, your conscious awareness of who you think you are, and your form, this vehicle, this body, which is life. So what I notice in experimenting with this over time is that it's not only about learning and identifying what is consistent or defined within the body graph, which you can see here we have the 9 centers, their names there, kind of like the chakra system, but everything got an evolvement or an upgrade. We got a mutation. Okay, so what we're looking at is that there is something consistent inside of you for the vast majority of you. Reliable, trustworthy, fixed, your nature that is completely unique and different. No one else on the planet has your exact, we're calling that definition. Definition is where we have life force, which is activated through 2 planetary aspects, whether they're conscious or unconscious, meeting together in a channel. Think of a channel like, how channeling is like opening a portal. It's a channel of energy or awareness, some kind of function that makes you unique, utterly unique. And that very configuration of the many different ways that this chart could be configured through definition. Again, definition, remember, these lines between these centers, the functioning being fixed because there's planets reaching out to each other. Hey, nice to meet you. This is who we are, this life. That can also show up in many different ways. Those are the definition types. We also have no definition. I would love to know if there's anybody in here that has no definition in your human design body graph, because you're a very special and unique person. And I would love to know if this is a surprise for you today about how unique you are. So now, when we look, I'm going to zoom back from looking at just the body graph itself. I want you to take a look at your body graph and look at those 2 calculations, the sun and earth on the conscious and the sun and earth on the unconscious. So relative to those 2 activations, this 70% of your genetic imprinting that is your life's work. There are about 192 possibilities, but then under the surface, there's all sorts of ways that this can show up. So when you're looking at your mandala wheel, you're going to find that where your personality sun is somewhere within that wheel. Mine happens to be, again, in Kali. Okay, so where I am in this mandala wheel, it's going to be unique to you, but mine is purpose fulfilled through the foundational learning of my mind's process, so that I can contagiate you with the awareness that I have gleaned over this trial and error filled life experience, so that you can learn not to make Lavina's mistakes. Isn't it nice when somebody says, hey, don't eat that? That's going to make you sick. You get to see Lavina make these mistakes personally and then share with you my experience about what happened and what I learned. Now, you'll notice again, we have those different calculations underneath the surface. This is where we see the differentiation of why you're different. Even if our charts look exactly the same, even if we were born on the same day, same year, different time, everything's very, 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 very different under the surface. And still, we can find our commonality. We can find our shared reality. When we look at our life's work, look down at your body graph when it comes to those sun-earth calculations, you're going to see them brought into that body graph. You're going to see how the sun's core essence is grounded into the earth, and your body, which is the life that you are living, is also grounded into the form. And this is the 70%. This is the reason why you are here, why you were reborn. So when we look at life purpose fulfillment, a human design analyst can analyze a body graph just like you as an astrologer analyze, your way, your systems. But the body graph is where the magic really happens. And you're looking now here at the control panel, these top 2 calculations. You see the familiar symbols, right? Sun and earth, sun and earth. And then also we see nodes, where you fulfill your life purpose with, or with whom you fulfill your life purpose. And then we see these magical squares down below. So again, on the personality side, this is your psychology. On the design side, this is your physiology. So I'm really fascinated by how this intersection of information dovetails into what you already know, wherever you're at. And that's why I made that call, and I want to reward you with those books, is because I want to hear what surprised you in this particular webinar. Was it the fact that your physiology, here's Lavina's, and your psychology, hello, hello, here we are different? Was it the fact that potentially you could see your biogenetic inheritance from your grandparents and great-grandparents, potentially, parents? Was it the fact that potentially you've been experimenting with human design? So I would like to learn or hear from you too. You've been experimenting with human design for a while, and you've also noticed, this is my noticing over some years of experimenting, that the psychology or the mental reality starts to take a little bit of a back seat, and the physiology or the body's nature of being can now be witnessed by the mind as you watch your form begin to differentiate, as you watch your body begin to come alive, be empowered or share or support in such a way that your mind is surprised by what comes out. And that's right there, one of those things that you can attune to. When you read a body graph from the physiological side or the body's biogenetic inheritance, the mind may not identify with what's going on the body side because it's unconscious. And as you decondition, in human design, we call this phrase experimentation. We have the enter into the experiment, and that is simply treating your body the way it's designed to be treated, making decisions that you can trust, eating correctly for your vehicle, your body, which is life. The vehicle, I keep saying, because your passenger consciousness, the witness consciousness, is riding around on this form, observing as the form is doing its thing. And so that was the thing that was really surprising. In the beginning, completely oblivious to this body. In fact, completely disempowered and very much shut down 12 years ago. So now what I find is that the way that I articulate, the way that I sound, the way that I look, the way that I behave, very different. Of course, everybody's going to change over the years, but that might be something that you've noticed too. And I'd like to hear about that. Someone is born premature through an emergency C-section. Does it impact the body graph? That's a really good one. And I'll say yes, because the moment of birth, when you left your mother's womb, is the moment of imprinting. Just like your birth data in astrology, if you had a cesarean section, if you were delivered by a cesarean section, then that would be your birth, right? So 88 degrees of the sun's movement before your birth, that is the unconscious biogenetic inherited imprinting. So it doesn't matter, as long as whether you are a natural birth, whether you are premature, the moment of birth, that's the moment you get imprinted by the neutrino ocean, just like with astrology. Okay. So
Lori Klein has a question about like some confusion. Does the coloring matter in the chart? I'm confused by the coloring. I printed out two different charts from different sites. And for instance, the bottom left was white in one chart and brown in the other chart, but the numbers were the same.
That's really good. Okay, so we have to address something here. One of the reasons why I am so passionate about this system and this knowledge is because there are a lot of bastardized versions out there where people have appropriated the material, created their own system so that they can have their own software and make their own money and have their own whatever. So I work with the source of the system, the founders of the system, and the only two softwares I recommend are mybodygraph.com and mayamechanics.com. That's it. Okay, everything else, those are not legally licensed, they're not approved, they're not official. There's the right word. They're not official. So the color, when it's colored in of those centers, shows that you have consistency. When it's open, it simply means inconsistent. It means you're learning about life. So learning about life relative to The open areas of the design is where you can be not only conditioned, but conditioning isn't a bad thing. I condition my hair. If I didn't do that, it would be very dry. I wouldn't live life if I didn't have the engagement with life. Where you're open is where you're receiving life. That's literally where you enter into someone else and you can condition each other or give energy and awareness and communion or communication. So it's not a bad thing. There is no right, wrong, or good or bad in this system. I hope that one helps. Okay.
There's a good question here about accurate birth time. How accurate does the birth time need to be? And if you don't have an accurate birth time to the minute, what happens?
Okay, so in our industry, most of the time we refer people to a Vedic astrologer because Vedic astrology is really, really good at looking at events in your life and being able to get very, very precise, like down to the second. But also in our industry, there are a lot less people educated at the level to where they can do chart rectification as well. But there are ways where in the deeper layers, we can ask you questions, have you experiment, and find what's right for you to a very pretty good indicator. It's you and your own authority. We're not going to tell you what it is. We'll say, well, you could be this and you could be that. Which one resonates with you? And it's quite accurate too, to be sure. So relative to the information that you are receiving from this body graph, always make sure you run it through your own filter and framework of what you know to be true about yourself. This system is not about telling you what to do. It's about putting the power back in your hands and to show you that you are completely individual and is here to facilitate your individuation. So that feels like enough. Is that good for now, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I was looking for more clarifying questions, and there's quite a few, but I think that they can wait till the end. Hopefully I got all the confusing questions.
Big picture questions, yeah. And don't forget, you guys, if you're feeling a little impatient, you have that chat area. It looks like I have got like 80 chats since I closed off that. And there are some incredible professionals, some of which I've trained here, that are in support of the knowledge and want to be able to contribute as well, because it's a great day for that. Today is a day of contribution. So I honor and trust that you'll find your way to the right people for you. Because the next shift that we're going to make is into something that I imagine might surprise you. It really might. And you might resonate with it. It might ring true for you. And it might be something that food for thought, that you might be able to create some social media content out of that for us to enjoy and to peruse when it comes to this particular video. So if you, again, look down at your body graph, remember those top two numbers that we're looking at, the sun and earth, that are either conscious or unconscious, grounded, into this vehicle, this form. The dot right after the gate number, there's a dot, a period, and then a single digit. So you can see in this design, I am a 3, 5. We always read it from the black to the red. Even though over the years, your form begins to come alive and awaken, and the form dominates. In the beginning, the conscious personality, we're going to hook you with the awareness of what you are. Okay, so there are 3 different ways that we can subcategorize, just in general, 3 different ways. We subcategorize the profile or the public role, the costume that you wear in this life, 3 different ways. I happen to be on a right angle. That has to do with the genetic imprinting, the angularity of the imprint between the personality and the design. I'm a right angle. Most of you are. We are all here with personal destiny to fulfill. These mean very specific things in human design. Your personal destiny is your own. It doesn't require that you come across very specific people in order to clear up past karma, as an example. So personal destiny people are people who are more personally focused, way more self-involved. or way more self-focused to a point. There are many different nuances and subtleties, as you well know, in astrology in order to find more clarity about this. But big picture view, those line qualities, which do have a specific set of themes, those line qualities give us the genetic imprint of the costume that we wear and what we resonate to throughout the entire 64-gate mandala matrix. There are 12 profiles. You are one of these that you see. And yet, this is a very gross generality, and you are such a specificity. We're not going to go to the specificity. That was the one I wanted to deliver to you that I went, nope, too much last week. We're going to talk basically about the way in which you're going to fulfill your life's work. Are you right angle, personal destiny? Or are you juxtaposition, which is a fixed fate? Or are you a left angle, which is about your transpersonal karma? The karma or action that you have to fulfill in this life with very specific allies in order that you clean up past life karma. So if you could look down at your body graph and see that left angle, I want to ask you a question and see if it surprises you. Have you ever met somebody that felt like an old friend or so familiar? You could swear that you've been lifetime after lifetime after lifetime with that lover or that child that finally is reborn into your life, or that uncle or aunt or mother or father, sister, brother, doesn't matter. Do you remember some of that comfort of familiarity, or maybe a shade of that, we've played this dance, this game, this movie before? This is what is part of your life's work when it comes to fulfilling a transpersonal, between two people, karmic fulfillment of purpose. So that if you recognize that, that's the 5-1, 5-2, or 6-2, and 6-3. You have karma to fulfill with very specific people in this life, which is very different from, if you look down here at the bottom, the vast majority, us right angle, we're banging around, we're creating karma. We are like the research and development area of the hexagram. And then right there, that little sliver in the middle, this is a fixed fate. This is a one-way track. And they are like the glue that hold together the transpersonal karma people and the personal destiny people. So I'm a personal destiny. I'm one of those people banging around, making mistakes, learning about things. And then, hey, this, you guys, this really is cool. You got to check this out. This is really cool. Have you learned about this? I got it. Blah, 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 because that's my mind. Okay, so I tend to come across very specific 4-1s. That's the fixed fate people. And fixed fate people are people who are going to build strong networks in order that the information from down here, research and development, right angle, personal destiny, gets to the left angle and that transpersonal karma purpose fulfillment. So personal destiny people, that's our 1-3, 1-4, 2-4, 2-5, 3-5, 3-6, and 4-6. Even though you 4-6s may have more interaction with others, it's still about your own personal trip, this life. And whatever it is that we have, like research and development, whatever it is that we've processed or experienced, we can pass along that genetic continuity or penetrate into the collective and be able to pass on the knowledge of what we've learned. And sometimes it goes to those very specific left angle transpersonal karma people who are going to put it out into the world in a much bigger way. So that right there might surprise you, might be interesting, it might be engaging. It's something to investigate, to be sure. And again, remember, generality, your specificity. If you want to go deeper into this, true profile shows you so much more, because remember how there was underneath the surface of line quality, there's color, tone, and base. The way that we read our lines in life is if life was a script, movie script. The way that we read our lines in life is colored by what's underneath. What's that imprint? And you can see that we have a body type and we have a personality identification. So there are these two aspects of ourselves at play. And the more that you align to your form, this vehicle, this life, the easier life becomes. It's not going to be exactly perfect, but you may notice that you are more in harmony in life, or you are more resonant with life. And you may find that you find each other because now that you're resonating on a better frequency for you, as in more comfortable, not that anything's good, bad, right, or wrong, but just that you will be able to be heard by the people on your fractal, the people that are there to be heard from and for you to hear. The way that this energy exchange or this dance of this Maya, this illusion, it goes both ways. So you're going to find that over time, as you decondition and as you align, have you noticed that in astrology where somebody's been seeing you for years and you watch as, you know, you help them through their process, and at some point they let go of those old relationships that don't serve them and they evolve. Same thing's happening here. The same thing can happen here because we are working with the variability of humans and everybody can express on a different frequency. You can evolve, yes? So when you're looking at the body graph, somebody was asking, what do those two arrows mean? Those sets of arrows, that's something called variable. It has to do with the color, actually, particularly the tone underneath that line quality. And it's a little bit beyond the scope of this class, but it's a definite area of interest, radical transformations after you have some time in the experiment of being your own authority. It's a really amazing place to go look. Remember how at the beginning I was telling you, you know, some of us are really about sound and other people vision. Those kinds of things. How are you here to take in life differently and uniquely? So let's go back up to the surface for a bit. If we look at your body graph again, remember I use the term definition as in defined. When something's defined, it's very present. Yeah. If I go look up astrology, and last night, and I was preparing for this, and it was Wikipedia or some dictionary or something described what astrology is. Planetary bodies and how they affect the form. That's what human design is. Okay, so what we're looking at is definition of planets in relationship to each other in a channel, which brings strength to your design. And when you're operating in alignment, this is reliable, trustworthy, and it is unique, utterly unique. Because those two planets or more, sometimes there's more, think like a stellium in a sign, okay? You might have a lot of different planetary activations that are within that particular area of the body graph that brings forth variability, uniqueness to the way in which you are perceived by others or the way in which you perceive yourself. But that doesn't mean that the openness in your design is bad or wrong or broken or flawed. In fact, it's magnificent. What it allows you to do is learn from each other. Think of us like puzzle pieces. Wherever it is that I have a gate activation, you have the other side. Woohoo! Is this work? Is this fun? Is this not? Oh, no, I don't like that. Let's go somewhere else. You know, that's part of the way that my body tends to engage with people. This, my mind engaging with people. Openness, maybe I'll try that one. Or areas of information. Is this really interesting? I'm going to play with it for a little while. Maybe not. Okay, so openness is where you are receiving life, where you're receptive to conditioning. And the conditioning receptors in your design, they're not empty. This is where you're fluid, you're flexible, you can learn about life. You know how you guys do cycles? We do them too. Cycles of life. The life experience brought in where we can see people, places, opportunities, events, because of that very nature of the cyclical process of our Saturns and our solars and our Uranus opposition and our Chiron return and our second Saturn and our lunar cycles. That's where you're receptive to conditioning. So you can see this constant interplay between life that it is lived through you, as you, the definition or the activations within you, filter through what life has to offer you. And you follow your body into those places where it feels engaging, where it feels fun, where it feels surprising or delightful when it comes to your response, your energetics, your availability to be engaged. Or maybe you go, nope, don't prefer that. You're angry, you're bitter, you're frustrated, you're disappointed. Those are all signposts that your body is speaking to you with in order that you come to an awareness about what is right for you. That's all we're doing here. Filters of the consciousness data stream. Okay, this might be one of the most practical places. Okay, now, if you know a little bit about rave history, that's a rave body graph, by the way, in case I didn't mention. Human design, the rave body graph. In the beginning, when Ra was given the system, because it was a download that he got, there was no aura types, energetic frequencies of being. But at some point, he did enough analyses where he realized, and he started to see patterns, he realized people weren't quite getting it. They didn't know what to do with all this information. At this point, you might be feeling the same too. You're like, well, Lavina, this is like way too much, way over my head. I don't know what do I do about this? Okay, so you remember how I was guiding you at the beginning? You know, I want to get you in touch with your being, your availability to respond, your energetic nature. There are some signature frequencies or signposts of the spirit of abundance that rises from within the form that allows you to live one's life uniquely so that you can fulfill the purpose that you came here for. So I have a history, a background in body work and energetic healing and such. And one of the things when I was in massage school, long time ago, I will not tell you how long, very long, when we look at the body and try to understand how the body is built, there was this phrase, form follows function. So this form, this energetic blueprint, this body, which is the life, the body is built by the aura. It's not the other way around. We live within an energetic bubble. And that bubble, that auric frequency field, creates this life, this body, this vehicle, which is the life. So now there are 4 different vehicles based upon one's nature of form and energy and availability to be aware or to make an impact, depending on the nature of you. So if you're new to human design, you're going to look down at your body graph and you're going to see one of 4 words. You're going to see projector, generator, manifestor, and reflector. Now, there is a subtype of manifesting generator, just like there are subtypes of projector and subtypes of manifestor. So I don't want you to get confused by thinking that there is a lot more complexity to this. There's not. All you have to do to experiment with this knowledge, you don't have to study all this stuff. I'm just trying to whet your interest in, because you know astrology, in this, so that you can maybe play this game with me of recognition and share with me what you recognize about astrology in human design. Okay? So most of you are going to be generative. What that means is that you're available to respond to life. And the response to you, to life, should feel satisfying. And that's the essence of the abundance of the signature of the spirit of what you came here for. You're here to be satisfied by life. Your work should be satisfying. Is your work satisfying? Is it? Or not? If it's not, you're likely frustrated. That's a signpost of being out of integrity with one's form, the nature of one's vehicle. Body is the life, this open, enveloping aura here, magnetizing life to it for you to respond to. So that's a very different kind of frequency field than the manifested energy, which is this closed, more dense, and impactful. It is protective of one's nature. It's close to the body. You can even kind of see that here, very close to the body. This is because your energetic frequency has energy directly connected up to that throat, communication, form, manifestation, and there is no energy resource consistently defined in your design. So these are like two polar opposite, but energy types. They're very, very different from each other, but they're still energy types. Approximately, now I don't know what the calculations are currently, but manifestors are on the rise. Traditionally, we say it's about 10% of the population, and generators about 67% of the population. Manifestors are here to initiate. They get the ball rolling and have freedom of action in order to have peace. The fulfillment of their life's work brings them peace inside. So is your life peaceful, manifestor? This is the thing that you can contemplate. If your life is filled with anger, it's time to take a good hard look at what you're doing with your time, with your energy, or what you are potentially allowing people to do when they trespass on your boundaries. Those are the energy types, but that's not to leave out our non-energy types, or one of my teachers calls them awareness types. I quite like that. I'm a projector. If you're a projector like me, hi. Non-energy type means no consistent access to the consistent generation of life, nor the consistent manifestation of life. And so when you try to imitate, mimic, or be like everybody else, what happens is you end up quite bitter and maybe even resentful because life isn't giving you what you thought you were supposed to get when you thought what you wanted. You did what you thought what you wanted was going to get you what you thought you were supposed to get. Okay, that was quite convoluted. Just saying that the projector has quite an issue when it comes to operating in alignment. We are at the top of the hierarchy of having challenges in this life if we are not operating in alignment, meaning coming from a place of recognition in order to have success. The success is in the recognition of the other in their energy, the recognition of their other in their power, the recognition of the other in their surprise. So here we have the 1%, 1.5. Remember I was saying, anybody in here a reflector? Do we have any reflectors? I'm just curious. You know, these are very rare creatures, very rare. You might be surprised by how rare you are. No consistent access to definition like these other. We call them solar types, okay? Projector, generator, manifestor, you are a solar being. Your purpose shines through you. Whereas a reflector, like the moon, they are connected deeply to the moon. Their purpose is reflected like the light of the moon. It changes. So surprised by what is there, like, wow, didn't know that was there. And again, remember, I'm giving you signatures, signposts of awareness to see how on track you are with the essence of the abundance of the nature of spirit arising from within you. And that's just something to contemplate that might be interesting. Okay, this is part one of how we experiment. So Rob, being a very practical man, how can we make it so simple, even a child could experiment or with it or understand it, or a parent who didn't want to spend a decade trying to learn human design in order to see if they could raise their children correctly. So we have our reflectors, again, open. We have our generators, either pure generated or manifesting generated. And we have our manifestors, and we have our projectors. So the most ancient construct on this planet, these are our reflectors as far as the form following function. Then out of that became the generators. And then out of that, manifestors. And then out of that, projectors. Now, when it comes to being a projector, new kid on the block, you've only been around since 1781. You are here to master systems. If you cannot put down systems, astrology, psychology, all of the stuff that you could ever learn in order to understand people, hi, you're in the right place. This is like candy, walking a kid into a candy store when it comes to astrology, right? So energetic type, a strategy for decision making, the shadow theme that gets you to an awareness, and then the signature of your energetic nature of being expressed out into the world. This stuff is further explained in the course materials if you want to go there and learn more further about how to make decisions that you can trust. That's all the system really is about. How do I make a decision that is in alignment with my path and my purpose? How do I make a decision that's going to get me to where I just knew someday I would eventually achieve? So going back to astrology, I know you have questions, but I want to make sure that I give you enough for those of you who are not new to human design, that I give you enough to chew on so that we can get a really good engagement with the materials that you might find you respond to giving us, or you recognize you just want to share, or the power of the information as it moves through you in order to engage and get the ball rolling on a new project. Or maybe you're reflecting over your cycle of the lunar nature of what it is to be you. We are now looking at that mandala wheel, and we're looking at all those hexagrams. And when you get the handout, there's going to be, I think it's about 3 pages, where you'll get the calculations so that you can plug in these calculations into your astrology software and look and see, maybe look up in one of the books if you have it, what that gate activation is, or that portal in space is, in order to see if this correlates with what you already know. You might find you're surprised about knowing some of this stuff already. Of course you know this, yes? What is that? What are we looking at? How are we doing? Engaging? Fire signs. Excellent. Good job, everyone. Okay. So I can feel that I don't want to overwhelm you too much, but I really would like to get to the rest of the end of this presentation. And we're not going to go and read, I'm not going to read all of the gates and their names, but I'm going to show you big picture view, what you're looking at, so that you can start to feel familiar, like you're not having to learn anything new, that you're just applying some of the principles of what you're aware of already, because you've already learned astrology. Look at that body graph and notice. So if we start with the sign of Aries, this fire sign, and we look at where it's creating life force energy, because that's what definition is: consistent, reliable, trustworthy, energetic nature of being. The first thing that stands out is that we see the heart center and the identity function, or the G center, the high heart in energy healing, this place of love, identity, and direction. So we can see the G center, identity and direction, having a relationship through whatever planets you have to the heart center and the willpower function, this powerful energy that is required in order that we can be empowered in a unique direction. So this is the ability to initiate something new because of the recognition capacity, the willpower connected up to the higher self, a design of needing to be first, where in large groups of individuals, this is the one that rises to the occasion and helps all of us be more competitive, because that's its nature of being. Go look at some CEOs. Sheryl Sandberg, I believe, has this past, I think, marketing director of Facebook. So when you look at somebody's design and you're seeing planets that align in a channel, you're seeing the opening of those portals to where they are uniquely qualified to do something in this life, because it is their life force. It is the energetic imprint, it is the nature of their blueprint, in order that they achieve something. Achievements is a good word here for the heart center, yes? So you're looking at people who have the capacity. I'm going to add on one more gate activation here, that 21, biting through. This is the gate that is about power of the control mechanisms to bite through negative and persistent interference. These are people who need to be in control. Anybody else got a gate 21? Do you like being the boss? Are you comfortable when somebody else tells you what to do? Probably not. You're here to be your own boss. Okay, so just examples that I want you to kind of contemplate when you look at the slides, when you get the handout, you're going to see that there are activations, okay, of these gates, these portals in space, that now when you get the materials, you can go and research and go, oh, okay, I'm familiar with this area of that astrological wheel. I recognize that quality of innocence. Now, the innocence of the spirit of the self with those people who have that activation there. Is it something that you can recognize? The fulfillment of, in this area, it's the mind's fulfillment of purpose, the application of the fulfillment of purpose on this material plane. So it takes a lot of energy to get things started, doesn't it? To keep that heart beating, to have the gall, the courage to be able to initiate and get something new out into the world. It takes coming from the higher self. It takes aligning with that. My mind wants to say God principle, and I don't want you to think that this is anything about religion, because it's not. But this is a shaman channel. It is a bridge between the tribal nature of being and the channel of awakening. It's part of the mystical path. And each one of us, whether you have activations here or not, you still have a path to follow in this life, like the mystical way of awakening, if it is your path or your nature for this life to flow. So if we look at the next fire sign, we can see Leo. And what do we have here in Leo? Alpha, the channel of the alpha, which is a design of leadership for good or bad. So the quality and the nature of being, again, being, the identity, now expressed out in the communication, the world of form, the influential role of someone who logically recognizes that this is the right way to go, an elected leader that other people look to and say, hey, yeah, that's the one. That's our guy. That's our gal. That's our they, whatever it happens to be. That's the person we want to lead because they're alpha, because this is the nature of their genetic inherited potential. This is the broadcasting of what they came here for. This is their job description, you could say, in this life, in this life. And there's your activations. Again, I don't want to read them all because we'll be here too long. And I'm sure you have other things that you want to go engage with. But our last fire sign, if we look at Sagittarius, this particular channel is called the channel of exploration, a design of following one's own convictions, no matter what. For these people, when there are planetary activations connecting up these two portals in space, creating a fixed way that these planets communicate with each other, here in response, energetic response, energy availability rising up from within in order that one has a behavior that is very specific to that person's convictions, that this is just the nature of what they go for or decide about because this is how they are living in alignment. Ooh, I just got excited. And if you just saw a screen pop up, you're probably going to be voting. I shall not look at it right now. Okay, so Sagittarius, right there. This next place that we're looking at, what are we looking at now, my friends? Where is the sun? Is the sun here? The last few areas of time in this space where the sun is shining its light of contribution as it moves the endless march of time around the wheel. What are you looking at, my friends? Earth, earth, thank you, earth. And so if we look at the nature of earth and these glorious earth signs, what we are looking at when we begin with Taurus is there is a strong nature. I'm looking for the commonality or the big picture thread, as well as something just to touch in upon for you to recognize or respond to. The individual, for the most part, nature of being here is about this energetic, you could call it a kind of stubbornness, yeah? Strong like bull and stubborn, because there is this individuality that is there in the nature of all of these gates, with one exception, that 27 there, nourishment. which is where we find people who have compassionate natures and caring. Okay, home, family life, parenting, or in my case, reparenting. Yeah, humanity, because that's what advisors, projectors are here to do. You see no channels here. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong, just like your chart, bad. But when it comes to the nature of your process, you can see that there are a lot of different areas that are lit up. And so in a class, we would go into what all of those would mean. And there you have your calculations for when you do your work, your research, as I know some of you will go off to do.